Before we jump into the episode today, I want to share something with you from my heart. First of all, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I really can't tell you how much your support means to me. We've been doing the podcast now for almost 4 years. I can't even believe it. And I'm so grateful for each and every single one of you that listens, shares an episode with your friends, sends me a DM or a text message letting me know how an episode resonated with you or any aha moments. Seriously, I couldn't be more grateful to be able to create this podcast. It has been such a blessing in my life, and I love hearing the ways it's been able to provide value in yours as well. One thing you might not know is how much work it takes to be consistent with a podcast. In fact, did you know that the majority of podcasts don't make it past episode number 10? And we are well beyond that. And it's just a lot thinking of the episodes, recording them, editing them, managing the guests, making sure that everything runs smoothly and gets uploaded consistently and regularly. And so that's why I have created an amazing opportunity for you to support the podcast monetarily. And in exchange for that, you will get exclusive premium subscriber content. So for as little as $3 a month, you can become a premium subscriber of the podcast. And every month I will upload new voice-guided workouts and breathwork meditation audio for you. So that way you can work out with me, coaching you in your ears. You can also take a moment to reduce your stress and relax and come down and ground down with one of my breathwork audios. So if that is on your heart to support the podcast for as little as $3 a month to become a premium podcast subscriber, I can't tell you how much that means to me and the growth of this podcast. I appreciate you. If you're interested, click the link in the description, become a premium podcast subscriber, new content every month, and while supplies last, I'll send you an exclusive podcast coffee mug so you can have your self-love and sweat coffee every morning. I appreciate you. Now let's get into the show. Welcome to Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast, the place where you'll get inspired to live your life unapologetically, embrace your perfect imperfections, break down barriers, and do what sets your soul on fire. I'm your host, Lunden Souza. Hey, have you grabbed your free Self-Love and Sweat monthly calendar yet? This calendar is so amazing. It comes right in your inbox every single month to help you have a little nugget of wisdom, a sweaty workout, a mindset activity, just a little something to help keep you focused and motivated and keep that momentum towards your goals. So every day when you get this calendar, you'll see a link that you can click that will lead to a podcast episode or a workout or something that will be very powerful and quick to read. And then you'll also see on the top left corner of every single day, there's a little checkbox in the calendar. And what that is that's for your one thing. You can choose one thing every month, or it can be the same, something that you want to implement, and make this something that you can easily implement, like daily meditation or getting a certain amount of steps or water, for example, and staying hydrated, and even taking your supplements. This can be something if you want to get more regular doing a particular habit and routine, you can choose what that checkbox means. So if you want your Self-Love and Sweat free monthly calendar delivered right to your inbox every month on the first of the month, go to lifelikeLondon.com/calendar, fill out the form really quickly, and you will have your calendar in your inbox within a few short minutes. That's lifelikeLondon, lifelikeLondon.com/calendar. Go get yours for free and enjoy this episode. Happy today. Welcome back to the podcast. Happy New Year. Happy 2024. Actually, at the time of recording this, it is December 28th, and I'm recording from Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. I am on a trip with my aunt and uncle and my cousin and her husband and kids. after a nice taste of Utah winter. When I found out they were coming to Cabo, I was kind of like, I'm coming too. But yeah, I know that the time of airing this episode is after 2024, or once it is already 2024. And this time of year is when I start thinking about my words of the year. Now, before we jump into the episode, I'm excited to announce that Self Love and Sweat, the podcast, will now be available on Dash Radio on the Expansion channel. So it has just been my dream and my goal to grow the podcast to help more and more people understand the value of self-love and sweat. And I have been gifted the opportunity to have this show also be featured on the Expansion channel on Dash Radio. So I'm super excited about that. But this time of year is when I start to think about words of the year. Now, let me first start by saying that I do not like New Year's resolutions, and I'm going to tell you why. I think that New Year's resolutions are so played out that people don't take them seriously. And maybe you're somebody who begs to differ and you're like, no, Lunden, actually, I set New Year's resolutions and I nail them every year or whatever. But in my experience, and also especially with being in the fitness industry as I was for many years, over a decade, I feel like New Year's resolutions immediately put us in separation from the goal. And here's why. I think when we set New Year's resolutions to, lose weight or get healthier or do X, Y, or Z, it's like we start the year not there yet. And that's why I think words of the year are so amazing, because it allows you to start right now, choosing your words of the year and being that today, in this moment, in the next minute, in the next hour, in the next day. You get to ask yourself questions like, what would insert your word of the year do? What would they eat? How would they talk to others? How do they wake up in the morning? How do they show up, right? It gives you an opportunity to embody your words of the year. And so I really encourage you listening to this episode today to take this seriously, to really ask yourself, what words do I want to embody this year and beyond? I did an episode on this last year, and my word of the year for 2023, or let's say words of the year this year, I have two as well. Last year, 2023, my words were grateful growth. It was actually kind of like a combination word to remind me that it was time for growth and expansion with gratitude. For those of you that have been following me for a while, or maybe you remember, at the end of 2022, I officially retired from fitness completely. No more fitness coaching, no more personal training, no more fitness partnerships, no more online workouts, no more online group coaching programs. I had Strong at Home for Women for a couple of years, and I just decided it was time to pivot. And my heart knew it, my body knew it, my mind knew it. And so this year has been such an opportunity for grateful growth. 2023 was such an opportunity for grateful growth. I learned a ton. I put myself out there in ways that I never have before, and really developed the podcast as a business, really developed my life coaching business, really developed my beauty counter business. And I just am so grateful for all of that growth. And that word, I would ask myself all the time, what would grateful growth do? How would grateful growth show up in the world? What would grateful growth spend her money on? How would grateful growth engage in conversation? How would grateful growth show up in relationships, romantic ones, friendships, business ones, etc.? And of course I messed up. Of course I did. I'm human. We all mess up. I'm not perfect. Just because I said a word of the year doesn't mean that I just automatically am it, right? We have to practice showing up as it. And I think the great part about solidifying a word of the year and sharing it with people close to you, I mean, you don't have to share it on a podcast or social media or things like that like I do. I'm just an open book. I share everything, all the things, all the time. But I think something about that really is like a good foundation. You can go back to that always and you can reflect on it like, oh, no wonder that conversation, that relationship, that instance, that situation just didn't, work out in the way that I wanted it to because I was not in congruence with my word of the year. So I don't know, maybe you're thinking of some options right now. Maybe some words are just kind of, dancing around in your head. I encourage you to write all of them down, right? It's not like you just think of the one and then write that one down. Maybe you do, but it's fine just to like engulf in that process of identifying your word of the year and writing down some options. And I want to quickly share mine with you. So my 2 words for 2024 are integrity and endurance. Integrity and endurance. And these words came from a book that I read recently called Anatomy of the Spirit. And if you haven't read this book before, it is such an amazing book. I listened to the audiobook, which from my understanding is a much shorter version of the regular book. The audiobook is only 2.5 hours long. And I think I listened to it probably 5 or 6 times. And I found out about this book because I joined a book club in Utah. A friend of mine that I met living in Utah invited me to join a book club. And that was the first book that we read. And it couldn't have been a better book for me at this time. And if you're listening, read the book, Anatomy of the Spirit. I can't remember. I think it's Caroline Miss is the author, but don't quote me on that. I'll look it up and put it in the show notes. But the book is called Anatomy of the Spirit. And so, integrity and endurance. Integrity and endurance are my words of 2024. And so for me, integrity means being a woman of my word, not saying one thing and then doing another, not saying I stand for one thing and then not acting in congruence with that. I found myself in a space where I felt like people weren't showing up with integrity around me. And instead of blaming others and saying, oh, you didn't do this or you didn't, I really had to look inward and say, okay, game recognizes game, like attracts like. How am I not showing up with integrity? How can I show up with even more integrity so that others of integrity will show up in my life? Right? I'm a firm believer that the way we show up in the world is what we attract. And I know that might trigger some people because we want to live in a world where people do things to us and make us feel a certain type of way. But I really believe game recognizes game, like attracts like. And I really was like, okay, if I feel like people aren't showing up in integrity in my life, how can I show up with even more integrity? And so even though integrity wasn't my word of the year for 2023, I was already thinking about that and already recognizing that a little bit. And for me, integrity, it's just like saying things honestly and respectfully. When I say, I'll be there, I'll be there. When I say, let's do that tomorrow, I mean tomorrow, right? And also, it doesn't mean I'm overextending, right? And it sometimes integrity could look like, hey, you know what? I know I said yes to that and something happened where I can't. And I just wanted to let you know. I want my word to mean something. I think we can all think of people in our lives who they just say something, oh yeah, I'll be there or I'll come or whatever, or I'll get that done. And it doesn't happen and it's frustrating and it's annoying. And so instead of expecting everybody else to show up with integrity in my life, I just am gonna show up with a shit ton of integrity in my life. Funny story about, I say word of the year, but sometimes it ends up being 2, right? And I was talking to my friend Kylie because she's, very much into words and she has a very rich vocabulary. And I was like, I wanted to combine integrity and endurance. And so I was like, what's like the adjective for integrity so I can combine it with endurance? And the word was integrous. So I was like, oh, integrous endurance. And then her and I were Googling the words and whatever. And it was like, this word hasn't been used since the 1600s. And it just made us laugh because I was like, oh, well, I guess I could still choose Integrous Endurance. It sounds like a Harry Potter spell, Integrous Endurance. And it just made me laugh. But yeah, I think you can choose whatever word, even if you make it up. But that just makes me laugh. And it was funny. And so the reason why her and I got to the point of learning that integrous wasn't a word and it hasn't been used since the 1600s. What did the definition said? This word has been obsolete since the 1600s. But we got into that conversation because I reached out to her and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to figure out my word of the year and I want to combine integrity and endurance. Isn't the adjective for integrity integrous? And so we just started talking about it. It was really funny. And it doesn't have to be so serious sometimes of like, I wish to tell you my word of the year, friend. We can just like have that dialogue and that conversation. So that's integrity. And that sometimes allows me to say, hey, let me get back to you. I don't know yet. Or no, actually, no. Because I want to be a person of my word. I want to be the person that when somebody talks to me or reaches out to me and I speak to them and my words come out of my mouth, I want them to know Lunden means what she says. If Lunden says she's going to be there, she's going to be there. If Lunden says she cares about me, she cares about me. If Lunden says she'll help me with something, she's going to help me with something. And yeah, and then I want to be in my integrity with being proactive in saying otherwise if I need to. Like I said, if I'm going to be there, I want to be there. But if, things come up, I'm not perfect, whatever. And I want to, immediately address that situation and be like, okay, actually, can we do it this day or whatever? Integrity. And then I can ask myself, like, what would integrity do? What would integrity say? Even integrity, like in the morning, if you wake up and say, hey, I'm going to go for a walk this morning and you don't do it, you might be able to hear a horn honking outside. Hopefully it stops soon. Anyways, I'll keep talking and maybe it'll drown out in the background. But yeah, I'm here at our hotel in Cabo. And so there's kind of I think you can't hear it. I don't see the audio skipping when I am recording. So anyways, I'm just going to keep going. And if it's crappy audio later, then I'll fix it. But anyways, integrity also means doing what you say you're going to do so you can build trust with yourself, right? If you say, I'm going to go for a walk in the morning and you don't, you're not going to trust yourself. Your mind and your body are not going to be a team to be like, okay, what I say to myself, I do with my body. And I think that's why people, when you don't build trust with yourself, it's really hard to build trust with others. It's really easy to see others as the villain doing things to you and all the stuff. But it starts with ourselves first. We have to step in integrity. We have to say, okay, if I tell myself I'm going to wake up and take the trash out, like those little things matter. They matter so much because then when it gets to the big thing, right? Showing up in the arena for the big thing. If you haven't shown up for the little things, your mind and your body are going to be like, bullshit. You always say that you're going to do this and you don't. And we have to remember, like, we get to train ourselves like a dog. Like, no, I'm going to do this because I said I was going to do it. No, I'm going to do this because I said I was going to do it, and challenge that programming. My second word of the year is endurance. Hey, really quick, I want to interrupt the podcast for just a minute to tell you about one of my favorite supplements for hair, skin, nails, digestive, and gut health. And that is Snap Supplements Super Greens with collagen. Now, if you're following me on social media, you've probably seen me post about this a bunch because honestly, this product tastes amazing and it's jam-packed with nutrients, like I said, to support healthy hair, skin, and nails. It helps support detoxification, a healthy immune system, and there's even probiotics in there for a healthy gut. It's non-GMO, no sugar added, soy-free, grass-fed collagen, and every scoop is going to give you 7 grams of protein. And this is why I love it, because it's not like a protein shake. It's just a scoop of powder. It tastes amazing. I put it in water, or if I want more hydration, I'll put it in coconut water and mix it up. And it's like having a nice, refreshing beverage that's packed with a bunch of super greens and protein. So what I'm super excited about is that for listening to the podcast, you'll get this discount here, nowhere else, but for listening to the podcast, you can save 25% off on all your SNAP supplement purchases, including the super greens with collagen. And you do that by using code Lunden25 at checkout. That's LUNDEN 25. LUNDEN 25 to get 25% off at checkout. You can shop on snapsupplements.com or you can shop on my website, lifelikelondon.com/supplements. And you'll see there's already an additional 10% taken off. But you, because you're a podcast listener, you're going to get 25% off when you use the code Lunden25 at checkout. LUNDEN 25 at checkout to get your SNAP supplements, super greens, and collagen, and all your SNAP supplements for 25% off. Now, let's get back to the show. Endurance. Being in it for the long haul. Doing things not for a quick fix, not for fast money, not for quick advancements, but choosing and making decisions that are for the long haul. Also reminding myself I'm in it for the long haul. So how can I prepare my mind and body for endurance, right? What type of thoughts do I need to be thinking for the long haul? What type of foods? What type of friends? What type of music, right? What would endurance do? What would endurance say? How would endurance show up? And yeah, when I think of endurance, it really reminds me of how I take care of my body and my vessel to be in it for the long haul, right? I don't know how long I'm going to live, but I love studying the blue zones and I want to be around for a long time. Not that you can't make a great impact in a short amount of time, but I don't know, just a part of me is like, I want to be around till like I'm 110. And I think that's because when I'm on social media or I'm around people who are super old, and it's just super motivating to me. Like when they're super old and their cognitive ability is just spot on and they're healthy and they're alive and they're vibrant, that to me is really motivating. So I think a part of me just wants to be that motivation too. So when I think of endurance, I think of the people that live in the blue zones, which if you haven't heard of the blue zones before, they're areas around the world where they have the highest concentration of centenarians, which means people that live to be over 100. And so there's one in Loma Linda, California. There's one in Sardinia, Italy, which is like one of my favorite places ever on the planet. There's one in Costa Rica, one in Japan, one in Greece. And that might be it. But yeah, there's a really good documentary on Netflix called about the blue zones, and each episode highlights one of the different countries and the different locations where people just live a long time and are super happy and have positive relationships and feel good and are just like all about life. And so I think of that when it comes to endurance. And yeah, those are my 2 words of the year: integrity and endurance. And I'm going to continue to ask myself in the morning, what would integrity and endurance do? And the thing is once you choose the word that you want to embody for your word of the year, you'll just know. You'll just know. It'll resonate with your nervous system. It'll sit right. It'll feel good. And then it'll be very easy as you continue to nurture your word of the year. It'll become very easy to spot the knot, right? There might be moments when I go to text someone and like make up an excuse, and it's like, nope, what would integrity do? Let me, I might, jump into something that's a quick fix or fast or whatever. And I might just be like, no, that doesn't sit right with my word of the year. That doesn't resonate with the person I want to be. And so, yeah, I encourage you to think about your word or words of the year. I think 1 or 2 is great. I think it's way better. And, set New Year's resolutions, set goals, but also have your word of the year. So then it's like right now in this moment, I can be present with my word of the year. My New Year's resolution is not out here somewhere unattainable yet. You don't put yourself in separation or in lack of the New Year's resolution right away. It's like, how do you want to show up? and think about it. And feel free to share your word of the year with me. You can send me a DM on Instagram. I'm at LifeLikeLunden, LifeLikeLunden. And you can also hit reply to any of my emails. If you're on my email list and you get my emails, then you can also hit reply to any of those, and the response goes directly back to me. I read all of your replies. So I would love to know what your word of the year is, help you kind of work on it a little bit. And it just feels good to share what we're working on. It was funny. I was doing something the other weekend, and I was with a group of people that were just like complaining about everything, like complaining about their job and how it sucks and the weather and all these things. And I was on a call with some people in my beauty counter team shortly after. And I was like, you know what? Like, why do people have permission? Anyone can have permission to do anything, right? And I'm not the boss of everybody, but I'm like, it's so normal for people to complain about how shit sucks in their life, their job sucks, their partner, this. Like, people can just complain about all the things that suck in their life. I want to make it normal to talk about the things that are great in our lives, to talk about our words of the year, how we want to show up, right? Not that we shouldn't talk about our struggles, but it's like, I don't know, I would rather talk about possibility than marinate in just my job sucks, this is hard. Like, ugh. It's just like, there's enough people out in the world talking about what they hate about their life. Let's talk about how we want to show up in our lives. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you at the next episode. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast. Hey, do me a favor. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, give us a review. This really helps a lot. And share this with a friend. I'm only one person, and with your help, we can really spread the message of self-love and sweat and change more lives all around the world. I'm Lunden Souza, reminding you that you deserve a life full of passion, presence, and purpose, fueled by self-love and sweat. This podcast is a Hit Spot Austria production.